Spoiler alert for the first 2 acts of the Natlan Archon Quest, but just the Archon Quest, no world quest here. You're safe in my arms. It's finally here, the nation of Pyro. We got capybaras, hot springs, capybaras in the hot springs, a long-necked rhino named Toto, extreme sports, breakdancing, and also a centuries-long war with the Abyss that will doom Natlan within the next year. Really light stuff. Well, I guess we now know why Natlan is a nation of war. So Natlan's war is against the Abyss. But before I get to all that, Natlan has turned out to be really weird, like just very different from sort of the lore we have from other nations. As such, there are a lot of new concepts to be explained, but I'll try my best to give a basic breakdown of everything before getting into the meat of the quest, and what may happen in the future. For example, they put a lot of effort highlighting Traveler's abyssal cleansing ability. I'm sure that isn't some sort of foreshadowing. Anyway, timestamps in the description as usual. So, we have 6 tribes in Natlan, and within these tribes, there are a select few who have an ancient name. An ancient name is basically a title inherited within the tribes. Warriors of the past would have had these ancient names, and their stories and memories are passed down alongside these names. These ancient names are bestowed by supernatural beings who protect the tribes. These beings are called the Wayub. They're incorporeal and conscious powers that know all the past and can foresee the future. Whereas the Pyro Archon is believed to come from above, they come from below, from the Night Kingdom specifically. They protect this Night Kingdom realm where 6 totems act like their bodies. Additional ones act like beacons to extend and relay their consciousness and will. The Night Kingdom is a realm beyond body and mind, life and death, a liminal space of sorts. This is where all Natlan souls eventually return, and the Night Kingdom essentially functions similarly to the ley lines. And it's currently being invaded and corroded by the Abyss. I'll get into some details soon enough, but that's a simplification of some important concepts, because this all builds towards the grand competition hosted by the Pyro Archon herself. The Pilgrimage of the Return of the Sacred Flame is a martial competition held periodically. Definitely more than once a year because Kachina has lost in 7 or so already, and I don't imagine a literal baby fighting in the ring. All the tribes participate, so the first round is a team phase, whose captain has an ancient name, which then turns into one-on-ones. At the conclusion, we end up with about 5 winners or so. Of the winners, those with an ancient name go on to participate in the Night Warden Wars. This part is not sport, but the actual war. This is where Natlan's forces go to fight the Abyss within the Night Kingdom. Once the team of ancient names achieves victory over the Abyss, they can return. Not all of the group has to survive to achieve victory, like how you can still win when you're fighting a boss and your team has been obliterated because you had really bad curios and your DPS is hanging on by like 1 HP in the final round. Okay, sorry, I digress. Getting back on topic, here's why the ancient name is so important. The ancient name allows the fallen to revive. Basically, the Archon and people sing the Ode to Resurrection, and the Archon resurrects the fallen from the sacred flame. But if the team fails to claim victory over the Abyss, then the ancient name dies with them. Here's the theme I think we should keep in mind from this aspect. Ancient names hold the story of every warrior who's ever held it, including the current. The sacred flame uses this memory to revive life. So, memory is powerful and has previously and consistently been equated to life itself. But here's the other thing. Kachina couldn't be resurrected because the ode was broken, and it seems like it had to do something with abyssal contamination and its grasp on the Wayub. Speaking of the Abyss, though, The competition serves a second purpose, which was actually its original function. The battles between Natlan people, and only those from Natlan, produce and collect contending fire. The contending fire fuels the sacred flame, which is Natlan's main defense in repelling the abyss. But now there is also a shortage of this contending fire, which isn't good. Now we can finally get at the essence of Natlan's war against the abyss. Natlan has been fighting a losing battle against the abyss, and it started 500 years ago. So when we're in the Night Kingdom, we encounter an apparition named Tupac. He's a legendary warrior from 500 years ago, and the giant mentioned in the Talking Stick lore. During a huge invasion of the Dark Tide, an exile named Tenoch united warriors from the 6 tribes to fend off the threat, with Tupac being one of them. As we learn, he was once from the people of the Springs and shared Mualani's ancient name, Umoja, which means unity. Tupac was the final recruit of Tenoch's united band of warriors, so I think it's fitting. Tupac explains that the resolve Mualani showed for saving her friend resonated with that ancient name, so she gained a deeper connection with it. With that, she was flooded with all the memories contained within the ancient name, which told of the origin of the conflict. This conflict was the start of Natlan's ongoing war with the Abyss. See, the Cataclysm hit Natlan particularly hard because they don't have deep-rooted ley lines like other nations do. Instead, Natlan has the Night Kingdom, which is comparable to the ley lines. The thing is, the Abyss had invaded the Night Kingdom, and as such, the Abyss has had access to the entire land's memories. This is why, as Mualani explains, during the Cataclysm, they seemed to have specialized threats for every tribe. It had a bit of insight, but that also means that any progress in the war was superficial. The infection is deep. Here's the thing. Mualani also learned that the tribe leaders and the Archon knew of the future, or our present, state of conflict. They knew the Night Kingdom, and thus Natlan, had 500 years maximum before succumbing to abyssal corrosion. So, they came up with a plan. Or at least one of them did. Mualani also explains that in the memories she saw, the Archon of 500 years ago was Mavuika. Anywhere else, this would seem normal, but not in Natlan. To understand the importance of this, we have to revisit what Kachina told us at the beginning of the Archon Quest. Unlike other nations where the Archons are gods, Archons of Natlan have always been normal human mortals. There have been many Archons, and to achieve that status, they just have to prove their strength in the pilgrimage and ignite their inner flame. But as mortals, they eventually grow weary and pass away. So, Mavuika seems to be an exception. Remember, Kachina also made a comment about how the Statue of Seven looks like the current Archon, which has to be a coincidence. But as Dainsleif told us years ago at this point, there's no such thing as a coincidence. So there have been many Pyro Archons, yet Mavuika was specifically the Archon from 500 years ago, and the one of now. But it is part of the plan formulated during the Cataclysm. Here's the sitch. Mavuika was the Pyro Archon 500 years ago, and she cooked up this plan for a united front of heroes to defeat the Abyss in the future. The heroes of the time were supportive of this plan, but understandably, it was too tall of an ask for them to participate. Mavuika, as the plan concoctor, alone sought to see the plan through. She placed her life in the sacred flame to be reborn when the tribes were ready in the future. Similar to how heroes are revived from the sacred flame. So what we see of Mavuika now is a very, very delayed resurrection. Now, the plan is ready to be executed, but the tribe's heroes are not all quite ready. But she already knows who they are and will be. We have 4 out of 6, leaving only 2 from the Flower Feather clan and the Masters of the Nightwind. I'm just gonna throw out, I guess the former could either be Chaska or an unknown Aoife character, and the latter will be Olorun. Speaking of the Archon though, I'm still bothered by how Traveler could not resonate with the Pyro Archon statue. I think the most straightforward answer is that this is also a consequence of the Abyss, as Paimon suggested. It's just their leyline situation. But I'm still left questioning about the ability of a regular person, even with a Gnosis and authority, to share some of that elemental power with Traveler. So I do wonder if there's more twists to the Archon story in Natlan. But I don't have any good explanations, so for now I guess we'll just stick with the Abyss leyline stuff. Despite Traveler's inability to resonate with the statue, Traveler still has his own unique power, which has been really emphasized during this quest. So I want to lock in on the Traveler's unique powers now. This part is going to have a lot of exposition, but I swear I think I'm going somewhere with it. But speculation disclaimer. So during the hot spring vacation, there was a flashback to Lisa and Venti talking about cleansing Dvalin's tears. Lisa says that elemental energy can repel abyssal energy. This explains why Natlan seems more sensitive to the onslaught of the Abyss, because they do not have deeply rooted ley lines. And this is also why Vision Bearers can withstand the corrosive effects of the Abyss better than normies. For example, like in the Chasm or in the Withering in Sumeru. But one can certainly overpower the other. For example, Atea has a pyrovision, yet she's corroding from the inside from her old abyssal wound. And Traveler can certainly cleanse corruption. I want to speculate on this part about this corruption and conflict of opposites, because the Abyss has some interesting qualities. It's described as chaotic, bent on destruction for no reason, and ultimately unintelligent. Yet at the same time, it's cunning. I mentioned that the Abyss was able to cater its attacks to the various tribes because of its access to the Night Kingdom. So in a way, I think you could say, even without intelligence, it's still learning. Maybe not like truly conscious learning, but more like a virus evolving. As a side note, I found Mualani's use of cunning interesting because in the Chasm interlude, the gang is dealing with some hostile, godlike force that can read minds and wants to consume souls, which I've always thought to be some abyssal force because the Celestial Nail seemed to be sealing it away. But it seems to be strategic in luring them out, and Xiao similarly called it clever. So if that was the Abyss as well, is it really just a malevolent, unintelligent entity? This brings up a compelling issue because in Renee's investigation notes, he implies yesn't. He talks about Khvarena, which is the power born of the goddess of flowers, and redacted, which is its equal and opposite. This redacted I've always presumed to be some sort of abyssal power, because as Renee says, Khvarena and redacted, when pitted against each other, create an annihilation reaction. Similar to Fontaine's pneumosia, but upscaled. We see this annihilation reaction as Khvarena from the tree and the power from the sign of Apausha meet and explode. But here's the thing about these two powers. Both Khvarena and redacted are like elemental energy, but they're at a higher level and they can rewrite the rules. They have a form of self-recognition and will. But as Renee notes, the users of these powers are stuck in an unconscious, or perhaps unintelligent stage. Renee's research on this marks the start of his obsession with evolution, that is, taking the unconscious to the conscious. And from this, his goal would be to become a descender himself, because a descender has the strongest will, even stronger than the will of Khvarena and redacted. So this was a lot of exposition, but I hope this is giving a sense as to why Traveler's unique powers are so important. During Act 1 and 2 of the Natlan Archon Quest, there are not one, not two, but 3 scenes of the Traveler cleansing abyssal power, with Atea with the Spirit Speaker's Stone, and finally the contaminated Wyub in the Night Kingdom. Each time, he's slurping up this purple abyss juice and turning it gold. So, speculation. But I wonder if this cleansing is an annihilation reaction. But the reason Traveler is unaffected and so efficient is because he represents a higher form of power against Joe Schmo abyssal power. It's opposite, but not equal. But the fact this is shown so much, and the fact that Natlan as a whole could use an abyssal cleansing, brings up some questions. Back to the hot spring vacation. Atea's organs have been basically eaten by this abyssal contamination, and even Traveler can't save her due to the extensive damage. So, speculation, but I wonder if this is supposed to be an allegory for the whole of Natlan. The Abyss has taken root in the Night Kingdom for 500 years. So like Atea, the Abyss has eaten away at Natlan's inner organs for years. So I wonder, could this sheer amount of regular abyssal energy be able to oppose and overcome Traveler's will? Or could there also be a higher form of this abyssal power that could be Traveler's match? And also, thinking about what it will take to save Natlan. What will it take to cure this abyssal cancer? Okay, honestly, I did have a passing thought that this meant destroying the Night Kingdom to stop the infection. Like, you know how in like zombie movies, like someone gets bit and it's like, oh, we have to cut off their arm. Like, I don't know how feasible that would be. But on the other hand, there's been an overarching theme in every nation about disconnecting from divinity, letting mankind figure out their own way. But like I said, I don't know how that would actually work, and I still think we have a lot of things to learn in the remaining acts. So maybe just ignore my unhinged ramblings, I guess. Oh, but just a random side note, speaking of annihilation reactions from earlier, you can see a divine nail in the Night Kingdom. It's very faint, but it has gold and purple swirlies around it. These divine nails, like Khvarena, and Traveler too, I guess, are excellent at repelling abyssal energy. That was their original purpose. I think these swirlies are interesting because I've also previously speculated that these nails are also creating an annihilation reaction. Here, it would be represented by these two opposite colors. In fact, in that same chasm interlude I mentioned, Yelan explicitly calls the conflict between the abyssal-powered Ruin Serpent and Divine Nail an opposing reaction. Anyway, just a random side note, but I kind of want to talk about this nail in another video at some point, so. But all of this, I think, is interesting to discuss because of the overarching themes of conflict in Natlan. This is getting long and I haven't even mentioned Capitano yet, so it's time for a rapid-fire theory based on vibes only. Capitano clearly has some history with Natlan, specifically from 500 years ago. He also looks like he has some version of a Night Soul aura. It's unclear though if Mavuika knows who he is. We do have a few names from that era. He probably wouldn't be Tenoch or Tupac since we kinda met their souls already, but we have a few other options. So, warning, this is beyond speculation, this is fanfiction, but here we go. What if Capitano is Sanhaj Kampore of the Masters of the Nightwind? Sanhaj was one of the heroes who fought with Tenoch 500 years ago. First, based on the visuals and the achievement, it seems Capitano has cryo powers. The Masters also seem to have a very icy color scheme, and Sitlali is also cryo. Secondly, it seems like Olorun is the one who saved Capitano, and he used the arts of the Masters of the Nightwind. So, a connection to the tribe would be good motivation for Olorun and Capitano to team up. Okay, this is still fanfiction, but the other reason why I bring this up is because it seems like the heroes of the Cataclysm in Natlan supported Mavuika's plan, even though Tenoch was hesitant. But what if one of those heroes did not agree with her plan? Consider this. The Masters of the Nightwind are also storytellers who dabble in fortune-telling. In The Talking Stick, Sanhaj foresaw his and Tenoch's end. But what if Sanhaj also saw something even further? For example, maybe some glaring flaws in Mavuika's plans. Although the talking stick also implies that both Tenoch and Sanhaj died in the Cataclysm during these efforts to fight the Dark Tide. But on the other hand, Capitano doesn't necessarily look like the most normal, alive person out there. But also consider this. At the very end of the quest, it's suggested that he's running out of time. In the Chinese version, it's more apparent that it's specifically Capitano running out of time. Imagine this, though. What if he's running out of time because he'll have to pass his ancient name to Olorun, who will become the 6th hero? Anyway, that's it for this mini-theory. I know it's less than half-baked and more like a bowl of Frosted Flakes with cheese. Lock me out of the kitchen. But listen, I just wanted to at least throw something out there that's a little bit different, so. But if I can find something more substantive, I guess I'll expand on it in another video or make another video just apologizing for this monstrosity. Thanks for watching. I thought that by focusing on the Archon quest, this would be a succinct and brief video, but also there are still so many things I didn't even touch on. Like, for example, the Sacred Flame, or this net that can catch concepts, or just AHA in general, but that's all for another video, I guess. Man, I still have to dissect the world quest too. Oh, also, I should mention, Mavuika said something weird about the shape of time. I didn't even mention that because originally in my script I had something on it, but I'm gonna make something separate on that alone. So, look forward to that. Because the shape of time is a block. Well, wish me luck with all of that, and I hope you guys are having a lot of fun with this new region. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Drop a comment with your own ideas. And check your smoke detectors. Okay, bye.